So, hello, everybody, and welcome. Yes, welcome back here at BSN Network. Here, back here, BSN Network. This is BSN Network podcast here today. It is Thursday, August 19th. Hopefully everybody's having a day so far and a good rest of their day yesterday. It is, in fact, Thursday, August 19th here today. Hopefully everybody's having a day so far and a good rest of their day yesterday. Coming off of another big day in baseball yesterday. The New York Yankees get the sweep against the Boston Red Sox. Pivotal. I mean, just massive sweep for the New York Yankees. And, it got close there towards the end. Chapman, first time off the IL, he struggled a little bit. He struggled recently as well. He's been better, but he struggled there. I think it is a little bit of rustiness. I think just coming off the IL and not pitching in about, 2 weeks or whatever. So it might have been some rustiness. I don't think he had a rehab start. So it's kind of one of those things that was his first time pitching in live game action since the last time he was out there, which was some 2 weeks ago. So, he didn't pitch great, but Licky came on, got the job done. Great play by Velasquez to get the job done. The hometown kid, he's from the Bronx. It's pretty crazy, his story, just everything that he's done, everything that he's, going to Scranton, being with the Rail Riders, then getting the call, getting called up, and, living out what was a childhood dream. It really is something special, and it's not just him living it out. He's making a massive impact on this team. I mean, he had 2 hits yesterday and 2 RBIs. He had a big play to end the game. He's made some big plays overall. This is a guy that's made a huge impact, and, these are the little guys, too, or these are not little guys, but if you follow what I'm saying, the guys that make the big impact sometimes are these minor leaguers, the guys that come up, that kind of are a jolt of energy. They're glad that they got the opportunity. They want to show what they're capable of, and not that the guys that are already up there don't have the energy, but in the dog days of summer, when you're in August and it's just a grind, night in, night out, you're playing and you're trying to win, and it's just, that's the grind. They always say that August is sometimes the toughest month to get through in baseball, because that's where it's really the grind comes in. It's like games every single day, which is like it is all season, but it gets to the point where it's like you're just grinding. It's sort of tail end of your season where you could have already played 120 games already, and you still got 42 more to go. So it's those guys like Velasquez and all those guys that have been stepping up and making those big impacts, and he's stealing a base. Judge is stealing bases. This team is completely different. I mean, it really is. And I was talking to someone last night while I was watching the game. Like, Odor's like the Energizer Bunny on the team. Velasquez is as well. Like, there's just a jolt of energy in this clubhouse. And the Yankees are a wild card team right now. If the season would to end today, the New York Yankees would be a wild card team. As crazy as that sounds, just a month ago we were talking about the Yankees. Are they going to buy or sell at the deadline? Are they going to restart and focus on next year? And now we're talking about them being in a wild card spot and just surpassed the Boston Red Sox in the wild card and the division. That's crazy. It's wild. I can't believe I'm saying it. If you told me a month ago that we would have been surpassed the Red Sox on August 18th, I would have thought August 19th rather, or August 18th as well, because we won last night, but I would have thought you were crazy. I would have thought you were absolutely crazy out of your mind. But hey, Yankees get the job done, and I'm super proud and just happy of this team, because it's just something that like this is just like pure joy as a Yankee fan. And we've gone through ups and downs throughout the year. And like I said, but I think right now it's a constant up. And hey, now we have Minnesota coming up. And that's a 4-game set against a really bad team. So, this is, we beat Boston. That's great. We're rolling right now. But this is like a gift in the schedule. This is a gift. You get Minnesota for 4 games. A team who's not good, a rebuilding team. This is a gift. You got to take this gift. At least 3 out of 4. Split, nah, it's not going to be good. With the way this team's rolling right now, I expect at least 3 out of 4 against Minnesota. We did 3 out of 4 against Seattle, 3 out of 4 against Minnesota. We're on an ultimate high right now, right? That's what I've been saying. Like, it's great. As a fan, it's great. But now time to turn the page, focus on Minnesota, because the division's not out of reach anymore. We're, 5 games back. Wild cards, we're in the wild card, but we're not secured. So this is a gift in the schedule. Like, this is MLB telling us, Here's four very winnable games. Take them. We'll see. Yankees play tonight against the Twins. Mets finally snapped their losing streak. They won yesterday in 12 innings, 6-2 against San Francisco Giants. McGee blew the save, allowed one run in the top of the ninth. Giants at second and third, I believe, one out in the bottom of the 10th. They were not able to capitalize, and it was 2 outs, and then they did not get They did not get any more opportunities, so the Giants took a loss. Mets are now 1-5 through this 13-game stretch. Now they head to L.A. for 4 games starting tonight. That will be Thursday through Sunday. So the Mets get back on the right track. It's nice. I always say it. Winning's nice. It's awesome. It definitely helps the clubhouse. We'll see if they continue. We'll see if this is a one-time thing. But they play again tonight against L.A. So, Yankees against Minnesota today. Both Mets and Yankees starting up 4-game sets. Yankees 4-game set at home against Minnesota. And the Mets close out their West Coast trip with 4 games against LA. And they'll have to come back home and finish off the gauntlet 3 more against San Francisco. So we'll see how all these games play out. Let's get to the topics for today's podcast. Lots to get to today. It's a very big podcast, so I want to get to the topics sooner rather than later because I want to get to them. So we're first topic up here, as I mentioned yesterday. I'm going to get to the fantasy football rankings. I'm doing my draft today, a little bit after this podcast, actually. I will be drafting my team, 12-team league this year for me. A little different. Usually I do, one of my leagues is usually 6 and the other is 8. So the one this year is going to be 8 and the other one's going to be 12. So this is my first time being in a big league. The only other league that's really big was my fantasy baseball league that I'm still in. That's, I believe, 10 people. I think it's 10 people. That 10 or 12, I'm not sure, but it's a big league, so I kind of get a little bit of the idea of what to expect and who to draft and all that stuff, and what to expect. I actually just before this podcast, I just did a mock draft, so I'm ready. This is probably the most ready I've ever been for a fantasy football draft. I do take fantasy very seriously. It's a little. I know a lot of people always make fun of me, and it kind of sometimes with how seriously I take it, because I do take it very seriously. But it is, it's gonna be interesting to see how the draft plays out. I want to give my rankings: running backs, quarterbacks, tight ends, and receivers. So we'll get to that. Then we'll get to the Yankees sweep the Red Sox. As I just mentioned, they sweep the Red Sox. Took 2 on Tuesday. 1 more yesterday rather. Forgot to mention, Heaney, after letting up that solo home run, I was going to say, oh, this game's done. Like, this is going to be a long one. And then the Yankees, hey, Heaney, I don't like Heaney. He hasn't been good, but he got the job done. He got the job done. So, we can't complain. Yes, he's not had good performances recently, but he got the job done. I think that's all we can ask for. And then the Yankees sweep the Red Sox. Also kind of a little bit of a preview into the Minnesota series and just a look ahead at their schedule. And then we'll finish off the podcast with the New York Sports Update. Football on today, I believe Eagles, Patriots on tonight, then some games more on tomorrow, and then Jets and Giants on Sunday, Jets in Green Bay, Giants in Cleveland for week 2 of the preseason. Jets had some joint practices yesterday against Green Bay, so that was pretty fun. Saw some clips of those. I like the joint practices. It gives you opportunity to go up against another team, another jersey. Players always say that, instead of hitting your own team, hit another team. You always get a little bit more energy. So, Yankees tonight against Minnesota, start up of a weekend series 4-game set, and the Mets 4-game set against the LA, start up of a weekend series as well, before they head back to New York to play San Fran again. Alrighty, so with all that being said, this is the BSN podcast, and let's go right into it. So as I mentioned, today is my fantasy football draft. I always do these. I don't know when you're a fan. I don't know. I know some people always request me to do these. I always do these. But whatever your draft is, whether it's, today or a week from now, or whether you do it on the day of the first NFL game, which is Thursday, whenever you do it, I'm going to give you my fantasy football rankings. If you've already done your draft, well, I guess you can kind of just go ahead and, compare what I think to what you did, and all that stuff. So, I'm in a PPR league this year. I'm basing off of PPR, by the way, so I'm basing these rankings off of PPR. So if some of the rankings seem a little different, well, that's because it's a PPR league, and it's a little different than usual. So I wanted to get into just the overall rankings. I'm going to do a little different this year. Instead of me, going through each player like one by one, I am going to do that. I'm going to try my best to keep it short time. I'm going to kind of keep like a minute clock here, kind of just like spend like 5 minutes at each position, which should lead me up right about to the 30-minute mark. Plus, I do have 6 players at each position that I believe are also very solid additions. They just didn't make my top 5, but I do believe that they're solid players. Quarterback, I think, if I make my top 10, all these players would be in it, but this is my top 5, a little different. So I spent some time yesterday on it, just comparing numbers, looking at it. Spent a good amount of time on it, actually. So I did the top 5 running backs with 6 sleepers, top 5 wide receivers with 6 sleepers, top 5 quarterbacks with 6 sleepers, and top 5 tight ends with 6. I shouldn't even call them sleepers because these are 6 high-quality players. So I did receiver. I did not do defenses or kicker. Nothing against those, but I find, what's the point of me talking about defenses? I tend to stream defenses throughout the season. If a defense is playing against a bad offense, I'll put in a waiver claim for that defense. That's usually what I do. It's just how I am. So I'm not going to do defenses. I'm just going to do the skill positions and then quarterback. So with all that being said, before I get, because I could go on and on and on about all these, let's get into this. So I'm going to start off with running backs, then go to receivers, quarterbacks, tight ends. I'm kind of doing it. Quarterbacks, tight ends, quarterback. I'm kind of doing it in order of who you should draft. I think you should go running back, receiver, flex, which could be a running back or a receiver. Then, personally, I think you go either tight end or a bench receiver, and then maybe a quarterback. So, quarterbacks could be 7th, 8th round. I've been doing a lot of mock drafts where I've gotten Justin Herbert late in the rounds. Baker Mayfield's been going undrafted a lot, so he's another guy keep your eye out on. A lot of good guys out there, a lot of good things. So, with all that being said, let's get into the fantasy football rankings. So, I'm going to start off with the running backs here, give you the top 5, and then 6 on the outside. So, number 1 here, and I highlighted his name, and I put a number 1 next to him because I believe this should be your number 1 pick in any fantasy draft, and that's Christian McCaffrey, okay? I think Christian McCaffrey should be your number 1 pick in your fantasy football draft, whether that's a PPR league, whether it's a regular league, whatever league you're in, Christian McCaffrey should be your number 1 pick. This is a guy who I believe, when he's healthy, he is the best running back in the NFL. I know Derrick Henry's very good, Kamara, Cook, all those guys made my list. I think there's something special that separates McCaffrey to those other guys, and that's the fact that he can be a really dominant receiver out of the backfield, and he can make a big difference. So in a PPR league where he's very good with the running the ball, he gets big gains, and then with the receiving where he can get out of the backfield and get a lot of yards from receiving, that's very big for PPR leagues. He gets 4 or 5 receptions, that's 5 points, plus the yards and touchdowns he gets, and his running ability, it's just unmatched. He's the best, I think, player available in the fantasy football draft. And also, I know a lot of people are talking about his injuries last season. You look back at the 3 games he played, I believe he had over 20 points in each of those 3 games. So he had made a major impact. He made a big impact in the 3 games that he played. When this guy's out there, when he's healthy, he's the best, arguably one of the best players out there. I understand, I think also too, the first couple weeks of the season with Darnold being the new QB there, kind of being a new system, they could rely on the run early on in the year. Keep your eyes out. Christian McCaffrey, number 1, Carolina Panthers. Number 2, I'm going with Dalvin Cook of the Minnesota Vikings, okay? I know I could go Derrick Henry here, but like I said, PPR league a little different. Dalvin Cook, another guy, very good out of the backfield, very good with the ball. He's very elusive. He's got good moves. He's a guy, too, that, he could break up field. He break tackles. He's very solid. When he gets to that secondary, he really turns it up. I believe his speed's very underrated in the NFL. This is a guy, when he gets to the secondary, he's very good one-on-one with a corner. He could juke, he could cut, he could do a lot of different stuff. He did tear his ACL. That does not seem to slow him down. A guy who I know a lot of people are kind of iffy on this season because Kirk Cousins now has Justin Jefferson his second year, Thielen's returns, and Irv Smith Jr. has been really good at the tight end position in training camp and preseason so far. I would not be concerned. Dalvin Cook, arguably one of the best players in the league. Number 2 goes Cook. They're going to rely on the run ball. Kirk Cousins, I don't think, is a great quarterback. Not saying he's bad, but they're going to rely on the run. Cook's arguably their best offensive player, maybe outside of Justin Jefferson. I think even you can consider him still their best offensive player. They're going to still lean on Cook to run the ball in big moments of the game. Number 3, I have Alvin Kamara from the New Orleans Saints. I think this is one of these picks where he's going to have a big year this year. As I mentioned with McCaffrey with number 1, Darnold, new system, they're going to rely on the running game a lot. As we all know, Drew Brees retired for the New Orleans Saints, Drew Brees retired, and this is a New Orleans Saints team right now that their quarterback is a big question mark. It's not Jameis Winston. It's not Taysom Hill. It's a question mark. Because I'll tell you what, as a fan, I don't believe in Winston or Hill to go out there every Sunday and give you good production. I think the Saints, and Michael Thomas, I believe, is going to miss a couple weeks with an injury. The Saints are one of those teams that they're going to rely heavily on the run early in the year. I don't think they're going to air the ball out much with either. I think Winston will get the starting job. I don't think they're going to air the ball out with Winston. I don't think they're going to air the ball out if somehow Hill gets any snaps. They're going to throw short, and they're going to run the ball a ton. They're going to lean on Kamara, and when they throw, it's going to be probably little checkdowns to Kamara, a guy who I think stock goes way up with the Saints having their quarterback issues that they have. Number 3, Alvin Kamara. Number 4, I have Derrick Henry, okay? Guy who had a great year last season. Little different with a PPR league. He's a very good running back. Receiving's not as strong as guys like Cook, McCaffrey, and Kamara. I think that's what separates him a little bit from the rest. Now, sure, if Henry lands at you at number 3 and you take Henry over Cook or Kamara at number 3, I wouldn't disagree. I would probably pick Kamara, but it's not a terrible decision. Henry had a big year, okay? The one thing with Henry, he was getting like 20, 25 carries last season a game. That might drop a little bit with the additions of Julio Jones and obviously A.J. Brown returning. Had a big year last year. He returns again. Might drop a little bit. I don't think it will much, but he might go from 25 carries to about 21 to 22. So maybe 3-4 carries that would be carries for him might be passes to guys like A.J. Brown and Julio Jones. And I know they lost Jonnu Smith, but I don't think that makes much of an impact. Last season, Corey Davis, A.J. Brown were the main two. This season, it's going to be Julio Jones and A.J. Brown. Now, like I mentioned, I think Derrick Henry, still a very good back. He can receive out of the backfield. But I think with Tannehill having all of his options like, Brown and Julio, I think it's a little different than a situation like Kamara where they don't got many receivers when Michael Thomas is down. So Derrick Henry coming at number 4. I mean, we see he's not human. Derrick Henry is not human. He's stiff-arming, trucking. This is one of these rare backs where he can do both. Give you 15, 20 yards, and he can also give you 3 or 4 strong yardage plays. Number 4, Derrick Henry. Number 5, I have Nick Chubb. I know a lot of people are going to fall off the rails with this one. I think Nick Chubb's a really good fantasy option this season. And I understand a lot of people say, well, where's his receiving value when they have Kareem Hunt? And I understand that when they're usually going to do a little check down, Hunt's out on the field. But what a Chubb does with his running ability, just like Derrick Henry, is unmatched. I think Chubb and Henry are one of those rare backs in the league where they can give you 5 strong yards of just pushing the pile, and they can also give you 15, 20 yards where they show off speed that many of us didn't know they even had. Like I said, he's also a solid receiving back, not like Cook, Kamara, or McCaffrey, but he's almost like a Henry. And I understand Kareem Hunt comes down in a lot of those, receiving packages where they're going to do a check down or Hunt's going to maybe run a little bit across the field. I get that. But Nick Chubb, I think he's also very consistent. Chubb is one of those more consistent running backs where he's going to give you a consistent performance day in and day out. It's not going to be 1 week's going to be 25, the next week's going to be 5. It's going to be consistent 10, 15, 20 points week in and week out. And, for a team, too, with Baker Mayfield, Julio Jones, Jarvis Landry, and Odell Beckham, yeah, you could say, they have all those receivers, but we've seen Chubb's probably the best offensive player on that team. Chubb, I think, comes in number 5, one of those rare backs that can do both. Get you 5 strong yards of pushing the pile and also give you 15, 20 where he shows off some of his speed. So, number 5, Nick Chubb. So number 1's McCaffrey, 2 Cook, 3 Kamara, 4 Henry, 5 Chubb. And these are my 6 on the outside looking in. No particular order whatsoever. Gibson, Mixon, Carson, Barkley, Elliott, Jones. I took Elliott out of the top 5 because I just don't know with the whole Cowboys, he had a little bit of a down year last year. Now, if you get Elliott and you draft him, I'm not going to disagree. I'm just saying I don't know if he's up there with Chubb, Henry, Kamara, Cook, and McCaffrey. Antonio Gibson, I think, could turn into one of the better running backs in the league. I could very well put him at number 5. I do want to see a little bit more out of him until you would put him in your top 5. Definitely right outside looking in. I'm going to target Chris Carson, Gibson, Mixon. Barkley's interesting coming off the injury. I think if he didn't have an injury last season, he would definitely be in my top 5. Arguably, he might be number 1. And Aaron Jones, 2. I think his stock rose when Rodgers was missing practice, and it's kind of fallen back to medium now that Rodgers is back. I think if Rodgers sat out this season, Aaron Jones would be arguably one of the best options because they're going to rely heavy on the run game. But Rodgers is back. His carries are going to be about the same, and Jones is always a very solid running back. So McCaffrey, Cook, Kamara, Henry from 1 to 5, and in my 6 outside are Gibson, Mixon, Chris Carson, Barkley, Elliott, and Aaron Jones. All right, let's get the receivers here. So number 1 for receivers, I'm going to start off with the obvious, I think, here, Davante Adams. He's the best receiver in the NFL. I think we all understood when Aaron Rodgers was down there for a little bit with the whole holdout situation. I think we all expected, Adams' stock was falling, and that always happens, right? You even see with the Colts now. Their receiver stock are falling, but their running backs are going up because Wentz is down. And I think the same thing was happened here with the Packers. When Rodgers was sitting out, when all those things were going on, the Rodgers drama, I like to call it, we were all like, oh, Adams' stock is falling, but Aaron Jones is going up. Now it's the opposite. Davante Adams is the best receiver in the NFL. What he showed last season, he's the best. I know a lot of people are high on Tyreek Hill and say this and this and this. Not that I don't think Tyreek Hill is good, but I think Davante Adams is the best. And it's going to be tough for me to get my hands on him. It's going to be tough for anyone to get their hands on Davante Adams. He's a hot commodity. He's a guy that's he's a very high draft pick. I've seen him go top 7 in leagues, top 5. He's number 1. He should be the first receiver off the board in your league. Davante Adams, a guy who can do everything. He can catch it, run it up for 20 more yards. He can go deep. He can do almost anything. He is a dominant force and a dominant receiver. Davante Adams, number 1. Number 2, I have DeAndre Hopkins. Now, Hopkins had a little bit of an interesting year last year. He had some big weeks, and he had some good weeks, and he had a couple weeks in there that were interesting. I still believe DeAndre Hopkins, I still believe, is one of those guys that with Kyler Murray, this is their second year. As we all know, when a new receiver comes into a new system with a new quarterback, it's a little different. It's almost like a rookie. You're coming into a new system. You're joining in with a new quarterback. There's gonna be miscommunications and things like that. I think Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins in their second year together, you're gonna see a major jump in production. Last season was really good, and that was in their first year. Second year, Kyler Murray gets a year older and a year better, more experienced, plus DeAndre Hopkins is in the system for a second straight year. There's so many positives out of DeAndre Hopkins being number 2. And like I said, I think DeAndre Hopkins, you could still make the arguments the best receiver in the NFL, but definitely second year, I think you could see a career year coming from Davante Adams. Just the fact that Kyler Murray going into his third year, he's more experienced, and DeAndre Hopkins have been in the system for a second straight year. There's so many things that are showing us that there could be a major jump. DeAndre Hopkins at number 2. Number 3, Stephon Diggs, Buffalo Bills. Going into last season, I knew that Diggs was a good pickup for the Bills. I did say that. But I don't think we expected him to be a top 3 receiver in the NFL after last year. Well, boy, did he prove us wrong. Stephon Diggs had a dominant year last year. And with Josh Allen obviously getting that massive extension, and you got guys like Beasley and, all those guys, different guys like that, Beasley, Gabriel Davis, and you got Diggs on that. They got a nice, solid receiving core. It's nothing crazy, but it's a nice, solid, good receiving core that they get the job done. And Diggs is exactly that. One thing that I noticed a lot with Diggs last season was he was a guy that Josh Allen targets a lot, right? He's the number 1 receiver, he targets a lot. But that's one thing that's big with PPR leagues. We talk about receptions. We talk about guys that we talk about receptions and trying to rack up those catches, because a catch is 1 point in PPR leagues. So if you get 8 catches, that's 8 points. No matter how many yards you get, that's 8 points, right? So it's big for Diggs and those guys to get receptions. And we saw last season, Diggs is a guy that he's not just going to run downfield and just hope that Allen throws him one deep. He got to the middle of the field. He ran across the middle routes. He was out there catching balls in traffic. He was very physical last season. I think Diggs can only get better, just like DeAndre Hopkins. First year with Kyler Murray. Now this is his second year with him. Diggs, just like Diggs now. Diggs' second year with Allen, I think there can only be there can only be a jump in production this season. I know a lot of people might be saying, a little bit of a down year. Diggs has been, look at Diggs' career numbers. Very good. Okay, I don't know how last season was his first Pro Bowl, but if you look at his career numbers, very good. Stephon Diggs, number 3. Number 4, Tyreek Hill. I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me here and probably say he's number 2 or even number 1. The only thing I have with Tyreek Hill, and like I said, I have no issue with him, is that Mahomes has also got Kelsey. And Mahomes likes to spread the ball out and, all that stuff. I just think that Hill's a very good receiver, but I just don't know in terms of PPR leagues if he's as strong as Diggs, Hopkins, or Adams just in terms of receiving ability. Now, sure, with Travis Kelce also being at the tight end, it does take some of the attention off of Tyreek Hill, unlike DeAndre Hopkins, where it's mainly the focus on DeAndre Hopkins. Diggs is mainly focused on Diggs. Adams, it's not really because they got Valdez-Scantling and St. Brown. And also, Tanya had a very good year last year, and I'll get to him at tight ends. I think Hill's a very good receiver. He's fast. He's quick. Gets across the middle. He's a guy that can make a 3-yard play, something big. A lot of these guys. He's a big... Hill is a very good example of a big play receiver, right? He's not going to get as many catches as some of these other guys, but he can get 3 catches for 60 yards. He's your definition of your big play receiver. So if you're looking at a guy that's going to get more yards and maybe a little less catches, Hill is the guy. If you're looking at a guy that's going to get more catches and maybe even the same amount of yards, that's Diggs, Hopkins, Adams. So definitely I think Hill's number 4 here. You got Patrick Mahomes throwing to you, so there's no questions about the quarterback. Tyreek Hill, number 4. He's very solid receiver. Give me Tyreek Hill. Okay, number 5 is kind of a tie with, I think, about 5-10 other receivers. I think DK Metcalf's number 5 right now. The only thing I have with DK Metcalf is very good receiver. And what I like about that Seahawks offense is it's balanced. Lockett gets a good amount of catches. Metcalf gets a amount of catches. There's not a ton of focus on Metcalf all the time because Lockett also can make plays in that offense. And that's something I like, the way that Russell Wilson spreads the ball out. Because we see a lot of times guys just throw and throw and throw and throw and throw and to the same receiver time and time again. And after a while, they start to double team and do all that stuff. Metcalf, that's a little different because he's able to spread the ball out to Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. I like Metcalf a lot. He's just like Hopkins. He's a deep ball receiver. He's a big playmaker, just like Tyreek Hill. He's a guy that, 60 yards downfield, he'll make a catch. The only thing with Metcalf is last season, he did have a couple rough patches. Everyone does. But what I really like about Metcalf is the fact that they spread the ball around. So when Metcalf's open, he's getting the ball. And it's not like they're trying to throw him every single play. When Metcalf gets his opportunity, he takes advantage of it. So that's why he's not very. That's why I think he's a good fantasy option because we always talk about consistency and stuff. But he's a guy that when he gets the opportunity, he's going to make a catch. DK Metcalf, number 5. And your 6 on the outside, as I mentioned with DK Metcalf, I think you could very well put Justin Jefferson, A.J. Brown, Calvin Ridley, Allen Robinson, or not Allen, Allen Robinson, CeeDee Lamb. Those are all guys that are very, very possible. Good possible receiver options. And as I mentioned before, you look at all these different receivers, and you look at all these different receivers, and PPR is big. PPR is big. So these are my top receivers. These are my top 5 here. My top 5 are Devontae Adams, Hopkins, Diggs, Hill, Metcalf, and the 6 on the outside are Jefferson, Brown, Ridley, Allen, Keenan Allen, then Allen Robinson, and then CeeDee Lamb. And like I said, CeeDee Lamb's interesting. I think I could very well put Terry McLaurin. I think Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Julio Jones, Cooper Kupp. Like I said, I just put 6. I kind of just thought of guys off the top of my head. I'm actually targeting Julio Jones in this year. I know some people think his stock fell a little bit. I tend to strongly disagree. I think Julio Jones' stock even rose. Because now they got Julio Jones, even though Calvin Ridley had a good year last year, Julio Jones was the number 1 threat in Atlanta. He was the guy that was getting all the attention. Now with A.J. Brown, they're not going to be able to double Julio because the attention's also going to be on A.J. Brown. So I'm predicting a big year out of Julio. Yes, age and all that, but don't get too caught up in last year. Get caught up in now that he's not really a full number 1 now. Now all the attention's going to be on Julio Jones. I still believe he's top 10 receiver. So that's my receivers. Adams, Hopkins, Diggs, Metcalf, then Justin Jefferson, A.J. Brown, Calvin Ridley, Keenan Allen Robinson, Julio, Lamb, any of those guys, as I mentioned. All right, we're going to go to tight ends here, then we're going to shift to quarterbacks. So, coming in at number 1 for tight ends, I think this is pretty easy. Now, I could definitely make the argument that Darren Waller should be number 1, but I just don't know. I think it's just hard to not say that for the number 1 fantasy that it can't be Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce is the number 1. As I just mentioned earlier with Tyreek Hill, they balance each other out, right? Hill's not getting too much of the attention because he's got Kelce, and Kelce's not getting too much of the attention because, oh yeah, guess what? The Kansas City Chiefs have Kelce. We all have Hill, and obviously Hill with Kelce and Kelce with Hill. So they complement each other very well. Kelce is your very rare tight end that puts up numbers like a receiver in fantasy. And I understand Darren Waller gets a lot of receptions, and I'm spoiler alert, Darren Waller is number 2 on my list. I understand he gets a lot of receptions and all that stuff, and that's big, and that's great. But Travis Kelce in fantasy is the most, he's almost like a tight end or a receiver. He puts up numbers like a receiver. We see a lot of times with tight ends in fantasy, they'll put up 6, 7, 8 points per game, and then you see guys like, I don't know, I'm just naming the number 1, Devontae Adams, putting up 15, 17 points per game. And that's the big difference from tight end to receiver. I think Travis Kelce is the most used tight end in the NFL. Mahomes does a great job at spreading the ball out to Kelce and Hill. And it's not one of these things like you're going to have to worry about the main focus being on Kelce, because that's one of the things with these other guys. The main focus is on these other tight ends, other than Tanya, because they got Adams over there. But I think Kelce, number 1, I think he's the best tight end. Now, I think Kittle, when healthy, he definitely is, but he wasn't healthy last season. He's got to show me he's healthy again, and then I could truly think. But I think Kittle's also a great pick. Travis Kelce coming at number 1. Number 2, Darren Waller. Now, I would put Kittle at number 3. I think you could very well put Kittle at number 3. The only thing that's different with me, and like I said, PPR. We're talking about last year, Kittle's number 2. Just a little different with PPR league because Darren Waller gets a lot of receptions. He's had some games where he'll get 10, 11 receptions. He gets about 7, 8 receptions a game, and that's big because that's automatically 8 fantasy points. Plus, let's say he gets 60 yards. That's 14 points. That's a very solid day for a tight end. So, Darren Waller, I understand they're in Vegas and the Raiders and their receiving core not being crazy strong. They do got Henry Ruggs and that, but it's not crazy strong. Waller is sometimes the center of attention over there, and a lot of times teams tend to pay attention to Waller. Linebackers pick him up. But Waller just tends to get better and better every year, and that's another thing, too. It seems like Waller just gets better and better and better and better every year. He continues to grow. He hasn't shown any signs of really, slowing down. That's another thing, too. I always talk about consistency. I always talk about, getting better and all that stuff. And Waller's a pure example of, this is a guy who just is getting better and better and better and better. Doesn't have any injury history. He's just a bright, young, really good tight end, gets a lot of receptions. He's going to get yards. He has a couple of weeks where he'll explode, and he has also a couple of weeks where he's very consistent, where he'll get you a solid points every week. But then he has a couple of weeks where he really explodes. He usually doesn't have bad weeks. He only has good weeks and then really good weeks. Very consistent. Darren Waller, number 2. Number 3, I have George Kittle. Okay, I think I would put him at number 2. He was a little bit injured last season. I think with the quarterback situation there in San Francisco, is it going to be Lance? Is it going to be Jimmy G? I just don't know if it's kind of maybe a little bit concerning with, does it make a difference if it's Jimmy G week 1 and maybe Trey Lance week 3? Does that maybe make a little bit of a difference in his production throughout the season? I'm going to take the optimistic response and say no, but I definitely think that's got to be in your back of your mind if you do go ahead and draft George Kittle. Now, he's a very good tight end. Make no mistake, when whoever it is, Jimmy G or if it's Trey Lance out there, Kittle's going to be their number 1 option. And Kittle, very, very much so like Kelce, puts up receiver-type numbers. I just think you just got to be watch out for that San Francisco quarterback situation. Week 1 through 3, it could be Jimmy G, and all of a sudden, week 4, it might be Trey Lance. So just watch out for that quarterback situation. As hard as it is for a quarterback to try and, build chemistry with the receivers, it's just as hard as a receiver to build chemistry with the quarterback. And that, changing quarterbacks could affect the entire offense. So I think just keep that in your back of your mind. But George Kittle, when healthy, definitely a dominant receiver. I'm just saying, I don't think he's going to struggle with the new quarterback. I'm just saying in general, just watch out. So George Kittle, number 3. Number 4, I have Mark Andrews. Now, I could put Robert Tonyan in front of Mark Andrews. The only reason I have Mark Andrews really at number 4, I mean, he's a good tight end. But if you watch the Baltimore Ravens, they run a lot of mesh routes. A lot of 5-yard routes across the middle. Or a little bit of a comeback route. Or a 10-yard route to get the first down. They run a very interesting offense. But Mark Andrews and tight ends thrives in those offenses. Now, they run like an old school offense. They're heavy run, and they don't throw the ball very deep. We all know back then, it was heavy run game, and there wasn't much throwing the ball deep. It was a lot of pistol formations. It was a lot, as they call it, it's kind of the fundamentals of football. Running the ball and throwing it. You're not going to air the ball out deep 70 yards, but they're going to throw it, and they're going to make completions. And that really helps Mark Andrews in terms of PPR leagues. Because he might not get a ton of yards. He might not put up 120 yards. But he's going to be probably the main threat there. I know they have Hollywood Brown and all that and stuff like that. But I still think Mark Andrews is the main threat. And another thing, too, is he gets a lot of receptions. Those little 5-yard in routes are sometimes very hard to stop. And Andrews has taken advantage of them. He just gets catches. Now, it might be 2 catches for 14 yards, but he might not have 10 receptions for 200 yards, but he'll probably get about 8-9 receptions for about 70 yards. And that's a really good day for a fantasy tight end. So a guy that, in the offense that the Ravens run, it fits very well for Mark Andrews and fits very well for fantasy. A guy that likes to rack up a lot of catches, not going to put up major yards, but he's going to get good catches and he's going to make big plays. Mark Andrews, number 4. Number 5, Robert Tonyan. I know a lot of people are kind of iffy. You always have that back of your mind of, he had one huge year, and other than that, he's, Okay, Robert Tonyan's one of those guys where he had a big year last year. I understand that, but this is a guy who I'm very high on. And I know a lot of people might say, they already have Devontae Adams and 2 other solid receivers and Valdez, Scantling, and St. Brown, and is Tonyan like the 4th option? No. Tonyan is the 2nd option, in my opinion. And we saw that last season. This is a guy who last year had 11 touchdowns. And that was big because that just goes to show you, Adams had a lot of touchdowns, and Tonyan had a lot of touchdowns. And I think Rodgers' main 2 options are Adams and Tonyan. So if you somehow find a way to get Rodgers, Tonyan, and Adams on your roster, good for you. I automatically think you could have a very great shot at winning your league. It's going to be difficult, but that's definitely possible. What I like about Tonyan is his touchdown numbers. I like that a lot. A lot of tight ends get 5-6 touchdowns a year. He had 11 last season. And I believe his production this season, I don't know if it's 5, 6, I think it might be 7 or 8, which is a good amount for a tight end, considering some receivers get around that. So once again, he puts up numbers similar to receivers in terms of touchdowns. And they do it a lot on the red zone too. So he's not going to put up major yards, but he gets a lot of touchdowns, and they lean on him a ton in the red zone. So I can guarantee you he's going to have another big year in the touchdown department as well. And his receptions are solid as well. But for a PPR league, to get those touchdowns and get those consistent catches are always solid. Robert Tonyan coming in at number 5. So my top 5 here, Kelsey, Waller, Kittle, Andrews, Tonyan. And just on the outside is Pitts, Font, Hawkinson, Goddard, Smith Jr., Thomas, Higbee. I think you can make the argument that it's kind of tough, but I think you can make the argument that Logan Thomas could maybe be up there. Smith Jr. I think I would want to see. I'm definitely thinking about drafting Smith Jr. as maybe kind of a backup tight end. But I definitely think that's solid. I know Goddard might split some time with Ertz, but I think that's mainly Goddard's position now. I think Ertz will get opportunities, but not as much as Goddard. Pitts, I think, is going to be him and Ridley are going to be Matt Ryan's main 2 options there. I know they got Russell Gage, but I think it's going to be him and Ridley. Font, now with Font, Sutton, Judy, KJ Hamler. I still believe, even with Drew Lock and that iffy Denver Broncos situation, like I said with Kittle, I still believe Font's going to have a very solid, productive year. You just got to watch out for that when drafting him. Teddy Bridgewater, Drew Lock, who's it going to be? Is it going to be Bridgewater for 2 weeks, then Lock, and then it's going to be Bridgewater again? Who's it going to be? Personally, I think it probably should be Lock, just because I want to see what he's capable of with all of his receivers. Last season, Sutton went down. I think Font, was he even held? I'm not even sure. They had KJ Hamler and Judy in their first year, so you'd like to see production out of them grow. Sutton's back. Font, they got a solid core over there. And Font's, I think, definitely one of their main threats. Especially earlier in the year if Locke's just trying to get comfortable. He's going to rely on a lot of short passes to Font, so look out for that. So once again, top 5, Kelsey, Waller, Kittle, Andrews, Tanyan. And in my bottom 6, I put a 7th. Pitts, Font, Hockenson, Goddard, Smith Jr., Thomas, and then Higbee. No particular order. I just wrote them down. I thought about it. I did do some research and looked at some numbers, but for the 6, I kind of just thought about other RBs. So if or other running backs, receivers, tight ends. So if I forgot about anyone, comment in the comment section. I just kind of thought of like 5, 6 off the top of my head. And so it just so happened that I was kind of sitting there writing them down. And I was like, oh, Higbee's another one as well. I kind of went through each team in my head, like Rams. And I went through, I started off, obviously, with, the top 5, and you kind of just grow from there. So that's your top 5 tight ends. All right, so let's finish this off here with quarterback. I believe we're making pretty good on time. I can't really see it well, but I believe we're making pretty good on time. I would say so. I think we're making pretty good on time here. All right, so it's about 40 minutes now. So we're making pretty good on time. Let's finish off with the quarterbacks, then we'll get to the Yankees and their sweep of the Boston Red Sox. So we'll get to the Yankees next. But here we go. All right, so top 5 fantasy quarterbacks. I got to admit, just public service announcement, before I did quarterbacks, I believe, second to last, or maybe I forget the order. But quarterbacks were very difficult for me. I just don't know what it was. I struggle with quarterbacks. I don't know. Just the order I took I just could not, I just struggled a little bit with quarterbacks. So I was kind of contemplating on not doing a top 5 for quarterbacks and instead just doing 10 quarterbacks that you should look at, no particular order. But here we go. Number 1, Patrick Mahomes. This is one I did not struggle on. I started off with Patrick Mahomes. I'm like, oh, this one's going to be a breeze. And then I was like, okay, Allen, Rodgers, Murray, Jackson, Prescott. Do we put Herbert there? Who's next? Mahomes is number 1. Okay, I don't have to give you much of an explanation. Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the NFL. He's arguably the best player in the NFL. Patrick Mahomes, number 1. Number 2, Aaron Rodgers. Okay, this one's weird because I was going to put Allen number 2, but I also kind of put in the mindset of if you're going to do combos with tight end receiver, I think in terms of if you're trying to fill up your roster with combos, Rodgers is the guy to do that. Rodgers, Tanyan, Adams. And that's a very good combo to have. Rodgers, Adams, or even Rodgers, Tanyan, because those are his 2 main threats. I know a lot of people are saying, oh, Rodgers going to have a down year after the whole thing that happened in the offseason. He's just not going to play well. I don't believe any of that. Rodgers is a good quarterback. He's actually kind of getting better with age. I know a lot of people can sit here and say this and that and no, Rodgers isn't this and Rodgers isn't that. But no, Rodgers is number 2. I would put Allen there. I definitely would. Like I said, if I would not disagree if you put Allen over Rodgers or Rodgers over Allen. I just put Rodgers there because he's the MVP last season. Adams, Tanyan, I just think his supporting cast might be a little bit better than Allen. Nothing against the Bills receiving core, but I just think in terms of tight end and overall receiving core, I just think his supporting cast a little bit better. And in terms of you're trying to get quarterback receiver combos, Rodgers is probably more the answer. But number 3, I have Josh Allen. Josh Allen, a career year last year. And I'm not buying that it was a one-year wonder. I'm not buying that. I think once you got Josh Allen, a number 1 receiver, you see what he can do. It's crazy. People don't realize how much a number 1 receiver can not only impact a quarterback, but impact an entire offense. I mean, Diggs impacted the Bills' offense. It was insane what Diggs did to that offense last season. That offense went from being solid to okay, to all of a sudden being a top 5 offense in the NFL. So you got to put Allen here. I think with Diggs and him combo, if you can get that combo, it's a little harder to get that combo. Now, I definitely think some late round additions, if you're trying to get combos with quarterbacks, could be Gabriel Davis. Watch out for him. Had a couple good games last season. And then Cole Beasley as well for a guy that you could fit into your flex. And maybe if they're going up against a bad defense, Beasley could be an option. Beasley, too, a guy that gets a lot of catches. And that's big for PPR leagues. Very good slot receiver. So Allen's got a solid supporting cast. I don't know if it's just like Rodgers, but got a solid supporting cast. Tight end still a little bit of question mark over there. But Allen, number 3, him and Diggs, been great together. And I don't buy that this is a one-year thing for Allen because guess what? That's what happens when you give a quarterback a number one receiver. The best comes out not only in the quarterback and the receiver, but the team and especially the offense. Number 3, Josh Allen. Number 4, I'm going to go with this. Number 5, I have Dak Prescott, Dallas Cowboys. Okay? Coming off of an injury, I think he's going to have a good year. I know he's injured right now with the shoulder and stuff, and I know there's some speculation on whether or not he's going to be ready for week 1. I definitely think if you do take Dak Prescott in the draft, just as a safety blanket, definitely draft a backup quarterback. I know some people are debating on whether or not to draft a quarterback. I think with Prescott, too, if you're going to draft him, I would wait a little bit. If he's available, take him. And then you got to draft another quarterback. Because I think I like Prescott a lot. I think Lamb, Gallup, Cooper, Elliott in the backfield. He's got a very good supporting cast. Very good. It's had the same cast all year. All pretty much his whole career. Okay? The one thing I'm going to say here with Prescott is just, with his shoulder and coming off the injury, not that he's been injury prone, but with the shoulder all of a sudden and now some question marks, you got to draft a safety blanket. So if you're going to draft Prescott, you got to draft a safety blanket. Whether that's Stafford, whether that's Mayfield, whoever it is, you got to draft backup. Hurts, Cousins, whatever it is, draft the backup quarterback if you get Prescott. But if Prescott's healthy, we saw what he could do last season. 502 yards in a game. He's dominant. Prescott, number 5. I skipped number 4 because I don't know what to do with number 4. Number 4, I put Russell Wilson. I think you could also put Lamar Jackson. You could also put Kyler Murray. And then you look at my outside 6 are Herbert, Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson, Tannehill, Mayfield, Hurts. I don't really know what to do here. I think if you get the opportunity to, if you're picking between Wilson or Murray, I think it does depend on whether or not you have Metcalf or not, or if you have Hopkins, or if you have Lockett, or if you have maybe Christian Kirk as a way backup option. Russell Wilson, I could see number 4. The only thing I have with Russell Wilson, and I'm not, last season, and you look at his career, he tends to struggle later in years. He starts off really strong, then he hits a little bit of a rough patch. And that rough patch can last about 3-4 weeks, which can definitely hurt you. So I'm going to say the same thing here. If you go out and get Dak Prescott, draft a safety blanket. I would say the same thing with Wilson. I think every year you got to consider Wilson as an MVP candidate, but he does tend to hit a little bit of a rough patch. I don't know why it is. Some players just do. Inconsistency hurts him a little bit, but when he's on, he's arguably one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Lamar Jackson, his running ability is unmatched, so I think you always got to put him in question in the equation, and in Kyler Murray as well. I think with his receiving core and his weapons that he's got with Hopkins mainly, I think that's solid. So that's my top 5 quarterbacks. I think top 5 is Mahomes, Rodgers, Allen. Number 4, I think you could put anyone. I think you could put Herbert number 4 or 5, and you might want to swap Prescott. I'm very high on Herbert this season. I'm telling you, if I get Keenan Allen, I'm going to get Justin Herbert. I'm going to go out and get him. Even if it's early, I'm going to go out and get him. Really fired up for Justin Herbert this season. I think he's going to have another big year. Why wouldn't he? It's not like he's lost anyone with the receiving core. He's only gotten, he lost Hunter Henry, but let's be honest here. Was Hunter Henry his main target last season? Not really. And he's got Eckler in the backfield too, where a lot of people are high on, but not just that, he's a good receiving back. So, second year in the offense, I think you can only see improvements. I don't know why he would not improve if he had a great year last season. We'll see. But Wilson, and then Jackson, Murray, and I think you could put almost anyone there, and then Prescott, number 5. And on the outside looking in, I think Herbert, like I said, quarterbacks, I kind of regret making a top 5 list for quarterbacks. I wish I just labeled 10 quarterbacks, no particular order that you could go with, because top 5 is kind of difficult. I wouldn't disagree if you take Allen over Rodgers, or if you take, Herbert over Prescott. I would not disagree, but it's tough. It's very hard. Quarterbacks are tough for me. So, Herbert, Murray, Jackson, Tannehill, Mayfield, Hurts. I'm high on Tannehill and Hurts. I definitely think they're going to have good years. I know Hurts is in an interesting situation there in Philly, but he's got Miles Sanders and Devontae Smith. 2 solid assets. Sanders can receive too. Solid running back. He's a sleeper pick. And then you got to look at, too, Devontae Smith. And he's a guy, too, that a lot of people have been drafting in mock drafts. So you combine him with Smith, we'll see. So that's my list. that's my top 5 position players. So we'll see how everything goes. I've said this year, I've never been more ready for a fantasy draft before. Every year I prepare, but this season more so than any because it's 12 people, and I've never done 12 before. So I wanted to make sure I was ready. And I believe I am, but, there's only so many situations you can go through. There's only so many things you could do. Once it's draft time, some things are out of your... I've always said that. Draft, 80% of the things are out of your control during the draft. Who picks in front of you, who picks behind you, 80% of the things are out of your control. The only thing that's in your control is who you pick. So, you could prepare all you want and hope that you get this guy and this guy lands. It all depends. I'm telling you, I've done so many different mock drafts, and every league's different. Every league is different. And I don't know how my league's going to draft. I've played fantasy with 3 of the people in my league. Other than that, the other people are new. So I've never played fantasy with most of the leagues. So I don't know how they draft. I don't know their plan. My plan is, for whatever it's worth, I'm going running back, because running backs on a 12-team league are a hot commodity. Now, I think if you're in a 6-team league, 4-team league, 8-team league, I think you go running back, receiver. But that's also because more receivers and running backs are available in the later rounds. I'm telling you, get to the 8th round, running backs are down to A.J. Dillon's and Fournette's and Jones. It's bad. Not as bad, but running backs in the late rounds they get slim quick. So I'm going running back, 2 running backs back-to-back. No matter what my pick is, going 2 running backs back-to-back, then going 2 receivers. Because I've been finding 5th round, Justin Jefferson, Thielen, Julio Jones, all those guys have all been available. So, and like I said, I think Julio Jones is only going to be better with the Titans because less of the attention's on him. Because now they got A.J. Brown over there as well. As long as they can both stay healthy, that's going to be a solid core. So, and then after receivers, as much as I know a lot of people are taking tight ends early, I'm going to hold off on tight ends. I probably will go flex, then tight end, and then receiver, 1 bench receiver, just so then I have kind of a solid foundation, and then quarterback. Because I'm telling you, 8th, 9th round, Herbert's been available. My ideal draft situation would to be, I got a draft early, this morning I did a draft. I actually took a screenshot of my lineup. Then we'll get to the Yankees. I know I'm kind of just rattling on right now, but I did a draft before I came onto the podcast today, and this was it. Justin Herbert, Alvin Kamara, Chris Carson, Keenan Allen, Adam Thielen, Robert Tonyan. I actually got it interesting because instead of going running back at flex, I did Cortland Sutton at flex. Colts defense and Graham Gano. And my bench was Leonard Fournette, Corey Davis, Cole Beasley, Ronald Jones, Randall Cobb, Jamison Crowder, Randall Cobb, and Baker Mayfield. So, Baker Mayfield, by the way, was my 3rd to last pick, just for any of your information. Unless if you're I don't think my league has any Cleveland Browns fans in it, so unless if you're a Cleveland Browns fan and you're drafting Landry, Beckham, and Mayfield. Mayfield's been around for a long time. I'm telling you, I'm okay if I get Mayfield as my starting quarterback. I am perfectly okay with that. I've also been finding that I've been going for some tight ends late. And the reason I've been doing that is just because the reason I've been doing that is for if I want trade bait down the road, middle of the year, if someone needs a tight end and I have a tight end on my bench that I don't need, I could give it to them. Or even if they need a tight end, or maybe if they need depth at the position, or their tight end's injured and there's nobody good. I said this earlier. I was talking to someone that was in the league yesterday. I think tight ends this year, or any position this year, I think there's going to be more trades in the 12-team league because the waiver wires aren't going to be as strong. You're not going to see Cooper Kupp sitting on the waiver wire this year. Some years you see that. You're not, because Cooper Kupp's going to be actually a solid receiver. You're not going to see Leonard, or you're not going to see I don't know, what's a player that usually just sits on waivers? Mixon sometimes too. Who else? I'm trying to think. Who's another guy usually just sits on waivers? So I don't know. Either way, but your waiver wires are going to be less. They're not going to be as strong. So I think you're going to make more trades. If you need a running back, Sure, you could go to the waiver wire, but it might not be as strong. You might need to trade for one. So that's also, I got to keep that in mind as well. A lot going through my head during the draft. I do overthink a ton. I'm a victim of that. I overthink things. I get to my pick, and I got all the practice I do. I'll sit there and double think, and I'll pick a guy that I didn't want to pick. Like if I get the opportunity to Kamara or Henry, I might double think and say, "Oh, pick Henry," but I have Kamara higher on my list. So we do. I find too. I make all these lists and stuff, and I will use today. I make my list, and I find during the draft how everything goes. It's just everything goes so quick and everything goes so fast. By the end, by the fifth round, this list means nothing because all these players are off the board, and it's just kind of to the point. One year I did a list where I did 50 players on it. Did their bye weeks, put everything down. Didn't win the league, but it helped because I'll tell you what, I got to those later rounds and players on my list were still available. I usually check players off too. When a player gets drafted, I usually check it off. So then I know and I lower my options. But definitely, I got my strategy in my head. Running back, receiver. After that, it's going to go on how the draft is playing out. If the draft's playing out where there's a lot of tight ends available, I'll probably go flex because then tight ends are available. So I'll probably go flex because if tight ends are all of a sudden a short pickings by my next pick, I'll probably go tight end earlier because then I need a tight end. It all depends on how the draft plays out. First round is usually the easiest round because I think a lot of people just take the best overall player. If I get the 8th pick, Gibson, Mixon, Carson, all those guys are going to be on my radar screen. And who knows, maybe if I get the 12th pick and there's not a great running back there, I might go running back then receiver. Or if I get a weird pick where maybe I'm not quite set on drafting a running back that early, maybe I think he will be available the next round, I might go ahead and draft a receiver. But going into the draft, my hope is, I don't know how I feel about getting the number 1 pick. I know McCaffrey and all that, but my hope is to get the number 3 pick. I think the number 3 pick is the best pick on the draft. It's a bounce pick. You get a really solid asset, then you can go again, and you get another really quick pick again. Right? I just feel like you can get, I find that my best rosters are when I get the 3rd pick. But who knows? I think the 5th pick's the hardest. Because there's going to be, 5th pick is going to be the first 4, if they go as planned, you're going to be stuck between who do I take? Do I go receiver, running back, Henry, who? So anyway, with all that being said, I could talk about fantasy football for days. But with all that being said here, I'm going to get to the Yankees sweep the Red Sox coming up next. All right, so it's about 57 minutes in, so I'm going to just touch upon it a little bit here. I apologize, I know. I was quick. I did say that I wanted to get to the 40-minute mark. Which I did. I finished out 45 minutes, and I blabbed on and on for another 12. So that always happens. I just love sports, and I love talking about it. So I can go on and on. I could talk sports days. I could talk about it for days. But either way here, let's get to the New York Yankees. So the New York Yankees just swept the Boston Red Sox. Big sweep for the New York Yankees yesterday as they win 5-2. They won on Tuesday 5-3 in Game 1, won Game 2 2-0, and they finished off yesterday 5-2. It got close there towards the end. What was it? 1st and 3rd, I think. Was it 1st and 3rd, or was it 2nd and 3rd? 2 outs. Licky came in. 1st and 3rd, something. I forget the whole equation. Like I said, there's so many parts of the game I tend to forget all what happened. But yeah, as I said earlier in the podcast, right? And like I said, I'm just gonna touch upon it. 57 minutes in, and then we'll get to this is kind of going to shift into the New York Sports Update as well, so I'll preview the game here. Here's my thing with the Yankees, right? At the beginning of the season, we always talk about this, and a lot of actually people talked about it last year in terms of, having no fans and not having, any fans and not having, any energy. It was tough to find that energy in a locker room, on a team, in a dugout. It's tough to find that. Last season especially, with no fans, the fake crowd noise that was being pumped in through the speakers at the stadium, it just wasn't normal. And this season, obviously, with all the energy and with all the fans back, it's great to see. And the New York Yankees, I feel like now are finally using that energy to their advantage. I mean, it's the young guys getting called up. And I know it's a lot of time people always say, well, people always say, oh, look at all the people that are on the IL. What next? I got to admit, as much as, it is great to have your starters out there, your guys that you trust out there in these big situations, I actually like that some of these minor leaguers are up. Because we all know when these young guys are up, Christian Velasquez, right, or even Luis Heel, or any of these other guys, when they're up, they're like a jolt of energy. Because when they're up, sure, they want the team to win, and sure, they want to help the team win. But their goal, too, is also to show the coaches, what they're capable of, and not just the coaches, but other teams around the league, what they're capable of. Because let's be honest here. Like Christian Velasquez, a guy who started the year at AAA, I actually never heard of the guy, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I didn't until he got called up, and now we're talking about a guy that is having big at-bats and making big plays, as we saw in the bottom of the ninth last night to end the game in big series and big moments of the season. And as much as we all talk about, the injuries, and this is the worst time possible, I think the Yankees right now are playing with a different energy. And I think that's part of it because of some of these young guys and the Rougned Odors of the world that are just pumping energy into this team. And don't let it go by without saying, Joey Gallo and Anthony Rizzo, their impacts on this team have been, I think, more than what we expected. Gallo has done everything that us Yankee fans have expected and some. Rizzo is showing off his defense night in and night out. And that's what I said when we got Gallo and Rizzo. I said this. Well, if they're not hitting well, they're going to make plays in the field. Nothing against Rizzo, but I don't think he had a great night last night at the plate. I forget exactly. But guess what? That throw by Velasquez, he scooped that thing perfectly. I apologize. Rizzo hit a 2-run home run last night. I forgot about that. So, Rizzo hit a 2-run home run last night. And other than that, though, he made plays. But he made plays, and he made plays on defense. Making an impact right away. Same thing with Gallo. Sure, he went 0 for 3 in a walk. But guess what? He's making plays on defense. And even if that's just like the Boston series, he threw it home and it stopped Jarren Duran from going home. I believe it was Duran, or maybe it was Schwarber. I think it was in the first game. It stopped him from going home. Like, there's so many positives to take from this team right now. And with that being said, there's also something that has to be said here where you got to take it game by game. Yankees are on a high right now. We're doing great. We're winning games. That's awesome. But you got to shift your focus now to Minnesota. Because this is an opportunity. MLB gave you a gift. Okay? 4 against Minnesota before you head out to Atlanta and then West Coast trip. So this is a big opportunity. This is going to be your final home series for a little while. Because then you go out for a West Coast trip. The next time the Yankees will be home is September 3rd. So I'm telling you this. This is a big series coming up. You got to at least take 3 out of 4 against Minnesota. I expect at least 3 out of 4. Nothing less. So you got to focus. The Yankees got to continue to stay focused. Yankees are one of the hottest teams in baseball right now. Like, we just swept the Boston Red Sox. Like, just think about that for a second. Think about it. I'll let you think about it. We just swept the Boston Red Sox. If you told me a month ago that the New York Yankees would have expected the Boston Red Sox, or if you asked me if I thought the Yankees would be over the Boston Red Sox in the standings, now I would have thought you were crazy. And the Yankees are. And let's look at those standings. So right now the wild card standings are as Yankees are a full game up, actually. So we're 1 game up in the wild card, 69-52, 6-game win streak, and 8-2 on our last 10. And Oakland and Boston are technically, Oakland is in front and Boston's behind. So technically, if the season were to end today, the Yankees and Oakland would be in, Boston would be out. And Yankees, let me tell you, Yankees would be a wild card team and have home field advantage. That's how much these games mean, and that's how big these wins are for the New York Yankees. All right, so let's finish off with the New York Sports Update here. Yankees today against the Twins. I'm not going to really get into yesterday's game much because I just talked about it. We'll get into yesterday's games anyway here. As for yesterday in MLB, Dodgers won, Diamondbacks won, Brewers won, White Sox won, Mariners won, Royals won, Braves, Rays both won, Angels won, Nationals won, Rockies won, Twins won, Cubs won. Giants won yesterday Mets won yesterday 6-2. They moved to 60-60 on the season. Like I mentioned, Yankees won 5-2. Yankees moved to 69-52 on the season. And as for today, we got a couple games on today. Angels, Tigers, I'll give Tigers the win. Rays, Orioles, give Rays the win. Mariners, Rangers, give Mariners the win. Cheaters, Orioles, give Cheaters the win. White Sox, A's, give White Sox the win. Phillies, Diamondbacks, give Phillies the win. Reds, Marlins, give Reds the win. Brewers, Cardinals, give Brewers the win. Dodgers play the Mets tonight. Dodgers come in this game 75-46. Mets come in this game 60-60. This game goes on today, 10 p.m. Eastern Time on MLB Network. Mets got Taijuan Walker on the mound. He's 7-7 with a 3.75 ERA, and the over/under for this game is set at 9.5. Give me the Dodgers. And as for the Yankees come in this game 69-52. Twins come in this game 54-67. Twins got Gant on the mound. He's 4-6 with a 3.49 ERA. And the Yankees got Jameson Taillon on the mound. He's 7-4 with a 3.89 ERA. The over/under for this game is set at 10.5. And this game goes on today, 7:05 p.m. Eastern Time on MLB Network. You can also find it on Yes Network. 77% of people think the Yankees will win. Give me the Yankees. And let's get to fantasy baseball. Before we get to fantasy football, tomorrow I'll read my lineup. I don't know if I'm going to set it as a set topic or if I'm just going to read it like now in the end here, but we'll see. Right now I'm losing 113-102 in fantasy baseball, but today I've got going Will Smith, Matt Olson, Whit Merrifield, Gene Segura, J.P. Crawford, Carlos Correa, Josh Harrison, Christian Yelich, Austin Meadows, Manuel Margot, Avisail Garcia, Odubel Herrera, and Yadier Molina. We'll see if Voit plays. If he plays, I'll put him in. And I got Luis Garcia on the mound. So we got some updates here. A lot of updates to get to. So, injury update is as followed here. So Dylan Carlson, I already read, he's on the IL. Manoah's out. He's out. I guess he had a family situation, so he's out right now. And then Chris Bassett's on the IL as well. Athletics trainer Nick Paparesta said Bassett will be placed on the 10-day injury list Wednesday and is expected to undergo surgery August 24th to repair displaced and fractured bones on his right cheek. Shania Rubin of the San Jose Mercury News reports Bassett is expected to need 6 weeks to make a full recovery. So we'll see if he comes back again. I don't think he will, but we'll see. All right, so I made some roster moves today. Yesterday I added Josh Bell, then I dropped him because I don't really need a first baseman. And today I added Nestor Cortez Jr. Nestor Cortez, who's the Yankees pitcher, I added him. He pitches tomorrow, so I figured just get ahead of the game. And then I added Odubel Herrera, who's been playing better recently. He had 10 points last night, 1 point, 2 points, 2 points. So he's been doing well, and I picked him up as well. So I needed an extra outfielder with Dylan Carlson going down, so don't know how long Carlson will be out, but for the meantime, that's the acquisitions. So we'll see how it all goes. Alrighty. So that's it. That's the podcast. Today is the fantasy football draft for me. If it just so happens anyone else is doing their fantasy draft, hopefully you draft your team that you want. Should be good. I'm ready. I'm ready for it. I think it should be good. Probably do about one more mock draft before the draft, I would probably say. I might do one where it's like right up again, like because I set it so then it's I set the draft, so then it's I set the draft, so then it what am I saying? I set the draft so an hour before you get your picks. So an hour before the draft randomizes and you get your draft picks. So I was thinking like an hour before the draft it's going to come out, I'll probably do another mock draft. And then with whatever pick I get, I'll do a mock draft, get that pick. And then, because when you do a mock draft, you could choose your pick. I'll do a mock draft, use that pick, and see how it works. And see all that stuff. So hopefully everything goes as planned. I'm ready for it. I think it's going to be good. Like I said, if you've already done your draft, if that offers you any advice or comparison to your team, that's it. If you haven't, I know a lot of people haven't. I know I get a lot of requests to do these. If that helps you with any advice, that's all good. And comment down below if you have any questions. I'll try to answer them. Like I said, I'm not a fantasy football expert, but I do I do spend a lot of time on fantasy and look at a lot of stuff, so I do try to gain as much knowledge as I can on different players and different rosters and all that stuff. So we'll see how it all plays out. But that will do it. Yankees, Minnesota Twins today. Yankees go for their 7th straight win, and hopefully we start up a 4-game set on the right note. So with all that being said, that will do it for the podcast here today. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. I will see you all back here tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.